So we've got the new solenoid with the one let me see if I can get this to so that you can see it with the. All right, so the plunger is in, releases, plunger's in, releases. So it looks like this is going to work. I'm a little bit concerned how it needs to be touched, but that might be because when it's seated, maybe it's partially pushed in and then it engages when it's there. So yeah. So we'll try to see if that works, and it looks like it's going to work for a 12-volt solenoid shutoff, fuel shutoff valve. So I'll get that installed. And one of the things I want to do next is I want to manually rotate this motor. So I'm going to put a lever on it and make sure that it's not froze up. Alright, so we're going to test this. We're going to rotate it. I built this part here so that I can put it on there, chase the threads and everything. See if I can put this in here without bumping the camera. So where are you at now? Yep, okay. And basically, I just want to make sure this thing's not locked up, because then I'd be wasting my time. Or I would have to basically pull the injectors out, try to get some lubricant in there, and work from that point on. So let me see. Alright, so let me put my wrench on there. Hopefully we don't have to go to inverted colon torque. We'll just go to fart torque. It might even be easier than that, so let's see. Alright, we have rotatage. It's not that bad. Okay, now I'm here in compression, exhaust. Alright, the only crispy in I hear is the belts going over the mud dauber dirt. So that looks good, that's a good sign. So we're going to have things now. Alright, so that's more than a turn. So we are set. So take my tool off and we'll be ready to go. Next I'm going to build that plate that goes on the to cover up the hole where the hydraulic pump was. So let's get busy on that. Alright, so I got this plate, the block off plate done, and I've got the gasket, so we're going to go ahead and install that. I also got some tubing for our intake manifold from the turbo to the intake. I got diesel fuel pump, and I got multiple switches and stuff like that. We'll start putting a panel together, but let me go ahead and film the installation of that plate, and then we'll move on to the installation or the finishing up of the fuel lines. We'll work on the fuel lines, get them finished up, and also move on to the turbo to the intake. I'll get that stuff filmed. Alright, so I got tired of fussing with. I thought I could heat up these plastic lines, these plastic snap-on return lines. They just melt. They don't stretch over the fitting. So it's basically 1/4-inch tube, and I found the package of T's, but there was only one 1/4-inch T. So I'm going to have to go back to the store and get a second 1/4-inch T to hook this up, and also the return that goes back to the tank. And that'll be it for the fuel lines. Like I said, this plate, the hydraulic pump plate is on. I've got a turbo tube that's going to go over, and so I moved the intake to the middle from the end. It was on the end. I moved it to here. It seemed like it was a better route for the turbo. So I'm making a reducer, 3-inch reducer to a 2-inch pipe. And once I get that done, I'll be able to cut down this elbow. This is a 3-inch elbow. I'll use that as a coupling. And this is the 3-inch. And I'm going to cut a 2-inch hole, and I'm going to put this into it. I'm going to put it at an angle also. I'll cut it at an angle so that it lines up better with the turbo tube, and then I'll use that coupling to put that in there. But I'm kind of impressed with my stitch welding there. I'll take and grind that down, make it look pretty, and then I'll cut the 2-inch hole in the center. But that's, I'm kind of running out of time. It's getting dark. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup around the shop here, and then I'll get back to you tomorrow. Did you know that Rock Lawrence Vintage Auto Parts makes a replacement transfer case shifter for the full-size Jeeps? You know, from 1980 on, all the way up until 90 when they stopped making them, they use a vacuum system. Can't get the vacuum motors anymore. The vacuum switches are breaking, the vacuum lines are breaking. So I have a full manual twin stick shifter replacement. So I can't start filming the diesel project again until I get some of these made. So I need to cut some metal in order to get these shifters going. So I'm going to be doing that right now. I'm not going to have you watch it. It's a boring thing. It was really cool when I first started doing it, but I've sold over 300 of these shifters and it's no longer cool anymore. Okay, Rocky, out. All right, can you dig it? I've got this board attached to the bell housing, and that's where I'm going to mount all my controls. I'm going to mount my solenoids, my switches. I'll probably put a piece of sheet metal on here and bend it down a little bit because those ones don't have the depth to go through the wood. But I'll screw all the other stuff into the wood, and that way it'll be super simple. And I'll probably put a foot across the bottom there to give some stability to the motor. All right, I'll give you another update here in a little bit. All right, this place looks like it blew up. However, I've got the control panel almost completed, and I also got my oil pressure gauge and another switch and some other things that I'm going to be working on. But yeah, this is all my stuff, and I do have the intake, the turbo pipe all done. But let's keep moving on, and I'll take some pictures of this when it's about ready to fire up. Alright, so I'm ready to bump some of these electrical controls, and this one here, the green wire goes to the glow plug, and you can hear that the solenoid kicks in, and I already checked it. It's got voltage at the glow plugs. This one here, the black wire set goes to the starter, and you can see that the starter is clicking, but it's not turning over. So what do you bet that it's full of mud dauber dirt? So let me pull that apart. I'm gonna have to dig into it. But this is a pretty cool setup, I think. It's all temporary, of course, but it is. I don't have the fuel system turned on yet, and I don't have it plumbed. I do have it electrically working, which comes off of this switch here. And so this switch here controls the fuel shutoff valve and also turns on the pump. So let me pull that starter and see what's going on. Alright, so it wasn't mud daubers. It was actually, this requires, I guess it's a way of avoiding a starter solenoid on the fender. Basically you have a low amperage start for the coil. For the solenoid kicks in. When it kicks in, moves the fork forward, and it also closes a really heavy switch, which takes the always hot from the battery and transfers it to the motor. So what I found was it didn't have that, and then when I tried to jump it, it wouldn't make a good connection, and I thought it was bad. So I started tinkering with it, and I found out that the problem was that the solder joint tab that goes to the stud it didn't have a nut on it. So I put a jumper and a nut on there. Now it's all nice and tight, and I think we can make smoke. All right, so it do crank. So now we'll work on the getting the fuel system going and see if we can get this thing to fire off in the next little bit. All right, so I've got the fuel system plumbed in, wired in. This is the fuel draw, And this is the return from the injectors, the smaller one. And we'll get ready to check this. One thing I want to do is I want to check the oil to make sure there's no water in the bottom of the pan, because I don't want to suck that up through the motor. And let's check that. Okay, no, it looks new. So I'm sure that I probably, when I put this in the Jeep, I'd probably already changed the oil. But you know, when it's been sitting for so long, you definitely want to make sure that there's not water in the oil. So that looks good. We'll be able to take and shoot that and get the fuel tank over here and crank it. Alright, let me tell you where we're at. I did find out where a good plug was for oil pressure. So I got an oil pressure gauge put up there. We are getting oil pressure. The thing that's stalling me right now is I'm not able to get fuel pushed to the injectors. So I am going to pull the shutoff valve off and see if that helps. I'm not sure if it's going to come right out the port or not if I do that, but this is a different shutoff valve than what was originally on there. So if it works with by pulling that off, then I'll put the original shutoff valve on. But there's also this thermal switch right here that goes to the top that was broken off, and for some reason it goes down to the bottom of the pump where there looks like there's a plunger, but it's a single wire, so I can only imagine that it's sending a ground. But I don't see any other electrical wires for a return path, so I don't know what that does. But if this shutoff valve doesn't resolve the problem, then I'll put a ground on this plunger and see if that allows me to push fuel to the injectors. All right, so let's get busy working on that. Okay, let me tell you where we're at. I've been trying to get this thing to fire off for about 2 afternoons now, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not getting fuel up here. I actually did a because I had 2 valves. This is the original valve now, but I had this is the original valve. I had 2 valves, shut-off valves, and I actually did a plunger delete. So I basically cut the tip off so that it would not shut off fuel, because I was concerned that maybe it wasn't completely retracting and allowing fuel in. It didn't help. So I wired in the original with a ground, and that seems to be working. And then the other thing is that I'm wondering if the starter is weak and it's not able to crank it over fast enough to build up fuel pressure and get it to the top. So I even tried to I've tightened these injector bolts back up, or the hoses, the lines back up, and sprayed some ether in there, trying to get a little bit of a fire so that if it kicked off, maybe it would run fast enough to basically get the air out of the system. And the starter is getting weaker and weaker. The more I use it, the weaker it gets. And it's not that I'm not letting it cool down in between, it's just it's dying. So I've got other things to do, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this video and maybe get some parts on order, possibly look at getting a new starter in, talk to some professionals related to diesels, and the other option is also to look at a pump and see what a rebuilt pump would cost. So I'll get back to this, but it'll be another series of videos. Until then, I've got things to do. I've got to get parts built for the business and some other things done. So hang in there. We'll get this beast running on video and then get it out there to sell. Sorry about that. Rocky out.